Hi there, you lot. Yeah, unexpected scenery, isn't it? Well, I just have an announcement to make. Not really an announcement, just reminder. I don't know exactly what to call it. The point is, I have a Discord server. I don't know how many of you knew this. Most of you, I imagine, would know this, but I do have a Discord server. And in that Discord server, there are a lot of things. A lot of things I've gone and done, but I just want to focus on one, which I am especially pleased with how it turned out, and that is the science roles. So, what's the idea of the science roles? Okay, here's the thing. When you join in the Discord server, this is the first thing you should see. That is the welcome channel. Alright, I've cut out all the channels on the side because I have access to all the channels and some of them are secret, which can only be gotten through Easter eggs. It's a long story. But the point is, this is what you see. And right here you can select a whole bunch of roles you'd like to have, select your age, your region, if you'd like to share those for updates regarding the charity, updates of the streams, etc., etc. And one of them is science, where you get to pick aspiring mathematician, physicist, chemist, computer scientist, and medicinist, which basically are the different fields of science on the server, the main different groups. You can pick more than one, more than welcome to. You can even pick all of them if you're one of those people who doesn't care about the STEM at all and just clicks buttons because pretty colors. We have quite a lot of those. The point is, you select what fields you're interested in. That's the basic idea. And on its own, it's pretty mundane and mild. What I'm really pleased with is this. This is the progression of the roles, how they go on. And the basic idea is that we have these 5 categories, 5 fields of science, and in those 5 fields, there are different levels you can get. Each level you get with the person on the next level assigning it to you. So for example, if you want apprentice, you can get it from an adept or an expert or a master. That's kind of idea. So, people higher on the list can give the roles lower on the list in their own respective fields. Adept mathematician cannot give apprentice physicist. You can't cross. And that's the basic idea. Alright? Aspiring is self-assigned for when you think you are interested in a field. Novice is kind of like vetted self-claim. Aspiring is for when you think you are interested in the field. Novice is when other people also agree that you are interested in the field. Because really often what I see is people have just real misunderstanding of what different fields of science are about. They think they are really into physics, only for them to turn out that they actually are into chemistry or mathematics. And that's what novice is meant to do. It's meant to parse if you really are interested in the field or if you are misunderstanding what the field is about. It doesn't actually require any skills. You can be a complete new person. You can just now be getting into something, but as long as you're willing to get into it, novice is for you. After which there is the apprentice. Apprentice requires a little bit more. Apprentice shows that you have somewhat of an understanding of a field of science, and it shows that you kind of get how to go around, you get the basic ideas. After which we have the adept. Adept is for when you have a bachelor's level understanding of a certain topic. That's because usually the questions in science that we get, the things that people are interested in, are very topic related. That's kind of how you get hooked into different topics. And so that's why if you're studying physics, for example, you won't go into all the different kinds of physics. You won't go into thermodynamics, as well as going into quantum mechanics, as well as going into relativity, as well as going into engineering. You won't get into all of those at the same time. Instead, you most likely will find one niche that you really enjoy, and eventually you will become really good at it, and adept will be for you, which can be surpassed by the expert. Expert is for when that kind of understanding averages out. So at a certain point, you may be really interested in quantum mechanics, for example, but just because you're really interested in quantum mechanics doesn't mean you can't understand other topics. And you will find yourself in a scenario where you have a pretty decent grasp of statistical mechanics, for example. Or you have a decently easy time understanding general relativity, despite it seemingly being not connected, simply because you start to notice patterns, you start to understand the language of physics, and as such, you just have a much easier time understanding all of it, and your knowledge kind of generalizes. You still have a preference for a topic, but you're not really spooked by different subfields there. So that is bachelor's level knowledge. Effectively, kind of knowledge that you would get if you were a bachelor, if you had a bachelor's degree, which is only surpassed by the master's. And you may notice that on the beginning I said that different roles can be only given by people that are higher on the list. So who gives out, I'm having a stroke, who gives out masters? Well, kind of just me, Remco, because for masters, the requirement is actually very specific. For the other ones, there's a general guideline. For masters, it's very specific. It's having a master's degree, which is a really high bar. I understand, but master's is meant to be the peak, the top, the heights to aspire to. So that one is kind of makes sense, I would say, to have it connected to an actual degree. And believe it or not, for the computer scientists and for the chemistry, we already have those occupied. Soon, well, to me, soon-ish, we may even have an additional one to complete the arrows with a doctor. You never know. That's kind of what I'm trying to get to. Also, I would really love to add a sixth category, finally, a sixth category, which would be engineering. The problem is that engineering is really tricky because it is kind of a combination of a lot of different fields. Like, physics, mathematics, chemistry, and computer science all can be thought of as engineering, all have that subsection in there. So it's a bit tricky, but yeah, I am open to adding more. For now, that's kind of it. And I really would love if y'all would join in the Discord and try to obtain yourself a role, because you will. I really want to create a kind of community where it has both interesting and productive scientific conversations. And let me tell you, it's a lot more difficult to create that kind of environment with productive scientific conversations than it may seem. And I think having enough people with these kinds of signifiers would make this a lot easier, because you explain things differently depending on the level you're talking to. If you're talking to someone who's an expert, you use very different language than when you're talking to someone who's a novice. And it allows you to kind of figure out if you not only what kind of terminology you should use, but also gives you more insight on the question itself. Because really often what happens with people who are novice or aspiring is they ask a question, but they don't really understand the question they are asking, which is fine, because it's really difficult to ask a question unless you know the answer, but it just gives you the extra insight to figure out how to answer, which I think is very convenient. So yeah, anyway, join the Discord, get the roles. I'm really pleased with this.